welcome, and I'd like to say I've been expecting you. That would be the truth. I have been expecting you. Yes, my name is Vic Galloway. I'd like to thank Ali McRae and Weaver and everyone else involved in Detour for asking me along to do this. I have to say this is possibly one of the most nerve-wracking things I've ever done. Even though I am used to speaking in public to an audience of millions, obviously, on radio and via the medium of television occasionally. You can hear me on Radio Scotland on Monday nights, and you can see me on air on telly, and you can read my written words occasionally. Yes, I've been asked to tell a story, so I'm going to, off the top of my head, tell a story. This fills me with absolute dread. There was Danny saying it's the oldest art form in the world. What I'm about to tell you probably isn't a piece of art, I can tell you that much. But I'll tell you a short story, and then, off the top of my head, then I'll read a poem, and then we may have some musical entertainment, as you'd expect from Detour. Anyway, I've been involved in music and broadcasting for a long, long time. 12 years now. And I've been in bands, I've been a musician, I've toured all over Europe. I've got a huge record collection, massive amounts of MP3s, CDs, mini discs, all sorts of unusable formats. And it all really started for me when I was about 8 years old and I saw Adam and the Ants on Top of the Pops. Blew my mind, changed my world, and opened me up to the life that I now lead. However, possibly even more important than the Top of the Pops experience was my first ever gig. Now I think this is something all of you as music lovers and gig goers will hopefully identify with in some way, shape or form. So I'm going to tell you about my first gig. Seeing as it's off the top of my head, I'm going to call this The Right Decision. Because two of us, my oldest friend in the world, James, and I, had a quandary. We wanted to make it special, we wanted to make it important, and we wanted to make it cool. We wanted to make it an experience that we would cherish for the rest of our lives, that we would hold dear to ourselves, and it would also be something pretty cool to tell the grandchildren if that ever happens one day. So we had a toss-up between two different gigs. We lived in East Neuk of Fife, near St Andrews, in a little village called Kingsbarns. If any of you have ever been to that part of the world, it is beautiful and sun-kissed, and apparently has more sunshine per day of the year than any part of the UK, apart from one tiny little bit of East Anglia, but we won't talk about that just now. It is beautiful, East Neuk, but it is secluded, and you still can't get a mobile phone reception there, even now. So, which I love, which is why I always go back there, see some friends, Fence Collective people, and all sorts of other musicians and pals from when I was growing up. But we were out in the middle of the sticks. We didn't have the internet back in my day. We had John Peel on the radio. We didn't even have Steve Lamacq or Mark Radcliffe or any of these people. We certainly didn't have Zane Lowe. Unfortunately, we didn't have Ali McRae either. Big R. But we had the occasional record shop. There was one in St Andrews, and there were a couple in Dundee, one of which was called Groucho's, and my friend James and I used to jump on a wee bus which we could take from Kingsbarns all the way through St Andrews, through Fife, over to the Tay Bridge, over the Tay Bridge to Dundee, and there we would go to Groucho's, our emporium. I remember saving up, having a fiver back in these days, I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen. That would get me the bus to Dundee, that would buy my Wimpy burger and get me a 7-inch single and a bus home. So you can imagine, it was incredibly exciting times. We wanted to go to a gig. We looked in the window of Groucho's and there was a blackboard with white lettering stuck on stickle brick type writing. The list of all the gigs that were coming up in and around Fife, Dundee, Edinburgh and so on. And we saw two of our favourites up against each other, one after the other. Adamant, the Caird Hall, The Damned, Edinburgh Playhouse. What has even more significance for me is that that gig was actually almost to the day. It was the 1st of June, we're on the 4th now, the 1st of June 1985. We had the quandary, were we going to make the right decision? We went for The Damned. Because Adamant was a bit passé by then, we were young punks, of course, with our DMs and our stripy mohair jerseys, cheap and nasty, knitted by our mums. We used to occasionally get the opportunity to come through to Edinburgh, go into Flip, which is a second-hand cool store, which there was one in Glasgow for a while as well. We used to buy white dinner jackets and things like this for £3, so we looked like Sid Vicious with our drainpipe black jeans on. So we thought, Adamant, passé, you know, it's over. We need the real stuff. We're punk rockers. We're going to see The Damned. Now, we were already fans of The Damned. For anyone out there who doesn't know who The Damned are, they were in the first wave of British punk rock alongside the Sex Pistols, The Clash, the Buzzcocks, Susie and the Banshees, etc., etc. To James and I, in 1985, The Damned were hugely exciting. To anyone else who'd actually lived through punk, they were past their prime and kind of on their way out. In fact, they were going into a pseudo kind of goth phase and getting ridiculed by the music press. But hey, I was 12, he was 13, we didn't give a toss. We wanted to see live music. My mum was pretty cool, his parents not quite so cool, but they were forgiving. He came from a large Catholic family. This is how large it was. Sarah, Marianne, Harry, James, Dominic, Tom, John, 7 children, mum and dad and grandmother all together in one house. I lived across the road with my brother. And again, Catholic mother, but fairly forgiving, and they said, yes, okay, you can go to a concert. I don't quite think that James's parents knew that we were going to see rock as punk rock. But anyway, my mum decided to do the driving. We got 4 tickets, 1 each of course, and 1 each for 2 of our pals, which I invited someone from my school, he invited someone from his school, and they were complete. What actually, his friend Dick Petrie, I can remember, he had the biggest brothel creepers I've ever seen, and you've got to remember he's 13 years old as well. It must have looked totally ridiculous, and a huge quiff as well. He was kind of into psychobilly and rockabilly, but my friend Johnny Cummins had no idea about music in any way, shape or form. So my long-suffering mother decided to drive us through. I remember the winding journey through Fife to the Forth Road Bridge this time. I'd only been to Edinburgh maybe once or twice, 3 times max, and it was still quite a scary place for anyone that hasn't actually lived or travelled around Edinburgh. These oppressive, ominous, grey buildings, the long driveways into the town, flanked by these walls. You didn't know what was behind these walls, these stately homes. It was kind of ominous. I can remember the squeaking and squealing of the bus brakes as we came into town. The journey seemed to take hours. It went on and on. Now I know, breaking the speed limit a little bit, that I can make it to and from Fife in about an hour, hour and a half. It seemed to go on for hours, but the tension was building. We were there, Crombie jackets, stripy tops, skin-tight jeans, DMs, brothel creepers, punked up to the max. This is it, our first gig. As we got nearer to the Playhouse, I could feel my adrenaline just racing through my body. My blood was pumping. I could not believe we were just about to see this legendary band. As we approached the Edinburgh Playhouse, which I'm sure a lot of you know well, still standing, still putting on gigs, not quite so many punk gigs, I'm sad to say. I said, Mum, right, park round the corner, we can't be seen. All right. She took us round the corner, we got out, strutting our stuff, moseyed on round the corner, and as we turned the corner to that sort of paved area in front of the Playhouse, I was suddenly terrified. There was us, 12 and 13 years old, thinking we were punk rockers, and then we were hit by 2,500 punks, real punks, the real thing, chicken head haircuts, rainbow colours, leather jackets, crude, rude t-shirts, women like I'd never seen before, Mohicans, eye makeup, you know, white plastered pancake makeup, you know, tartan kilts, DMs, brothel creepers, blue suede shoes, safety pins, badges. It was a sight to behold. I was totally and utterly terrified but enthralled. We made our way into that crowd of people, this crowd of punk rockers who admittedly started laughing as soon as they saw us, because most of them were at least 10 years older than us. I can remember 2 specifics sitting against the wall. The doors hadn't opened yet. It was probably about 7:15, the doors opened at 7. We were stood there shaking. These two punks, one guy, swastika t-shirt, little, two sort of little dreadlocks, the entire rest of his head shaved. Another guy, bit of a mullet if I remember correctly, Sex Pistols t-shirt. Again, the obligatory tight jeans, DM boots. They had a crate of lager between the two of them. And then, out of one of their pockets, one of them pulled out a little silver foil package, unwrapped it. One took one triangle, the other took the other triangle. They ate them very daintily. Looked at each other as if to say, delicious. Scrumpled up the tin foil and got stuck into the lager. And that was it. 2 cucumber sandwiches and a crate of lager. This was real life. This is real punk rock. The doors finally opened. We walked in. We sort of were herded in, more like. The splendid glamour of the foyer to the Edinburgh Playhouse was kind of offset by the seedy, sordid, smelly punks. Patchouli oil, cheap fags, cider, just reeking, just horrible scumbags, most of them crusties, no doubt. That's what we'd probably call them now. And of course, 4, 12, 13-year-olds. Before we got in, the doorman went, could you just go and have a word with the ticket staff, please? The little box office to the right there. We went up to them and said, we've just been directed to you guys. They said, oh, can we look at your tickets? Ah, the stalls. We're going to exchange these for tickets to the Circle. You get a much better view. It's much better. Is it your first gig? Is it? Yeah, you really enjoy it. It's much better. We'll take those stalls tickets off you. So they duly exchanged them. We went into the Circle and then realised very quickly why. The first band came on, the support band. We didn't even know there was such a thing as a support band. They came on. Mop haircuts, stripy tops, bone necklaces, Vox teardrop guitars, 60s garage punks. They were called the Fuzz Tones. I was absolutely smitten straight away. But the Edinburgh punks, those nasty cider-drenched, reeking of fags and patchouli, that unlikely, unlovable mob just started chucking stuff at them. And this is our first gig. It's the first band I've ever seen live. 2,000 glasses, and these aren't plastic glasses, these are glasses getting chucked at the stage. You know, all manner of other stuff. I mean, who brings tomatoes or peaches or fruit to a gig? Well, these bastards did. Chucking them willy-nilly at the band. I can remember the lead singer, whose name is Rudy Patrudi, if you ever want to look up the Fuzz Tones, picked up the peach from in front of the drum riser, took a bite, went, peaches, my favourite. And that kind of quelled them. The punks kind of liked that. But generally, the band didn't go down well. To be honest, I don't think any band would have gone down well. They were wanting the Damned. So the Fuzz Tones played, we loved them, they got peached off stage. There was the changeover time, in which these big curtains were drawn across the front. Finally, the curtains were drawn back, and there, the stage, even bigger than it had been before, was done out like a graveyard. Ladies and gentlemen, they don't make them like they used to. Well, occasionally they do, but look, I mean, if you're going to see a gig and the band do the stage up like a graveyard, you know it's either going to be utter shite or it's going to be the most exciting thing ever. Thankfully, it was the latter in our case. They opened with this track called Curtain Call, a 17-minute track, a rock opera no less, right? Amazing. They then went through their kind of slightly dodgy pseudo-goth stuff that they were doing, peppered with all their 70s punk classics, and the kind of early 80s punk rock stuff that they did as well. Smash It Up Part 1, Smash It Up Part 2, Love Song, Wait for the Blackout, Neat Neat Neat, New Rose, the first ever UK punk single released in this country by a UK band. The Damned, the first UK punk band to tour the States. The first UK punk band to put out their debut album, to put out any album in the punk scene, apart from those US guys, the Ramones. But the first UK punk band to put out an album. They were legends. They were total legends in my eyes. That opening salvo of Curtain Call, a cigarette going across the back of the stage, Rat Scabies, the drummer, taking to the drum stool. That's all you could see, the red glow. The drums kicking off, the lights going up, the dry ice, The guitar and bass player, Captain Sensible, Algie Ward, was it? No, Roman Jug, that was his name. And finally, lead singer, Dave Vanian, running onto the stage and doing the splits. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, you know, I go and see millions of bands still to this day, and I love the live experience, but when something like that is your first live experience, it sets the bar pretty high. Anyway, they did 2, 3, 4 encores, I can't remember. It was just relentless hit after hit after hit of punk rock straight into our bloodstream, almost intravenously done. It was the most exciting thing. I told you that Top of the Pops experience was exciting. This was life-changing, without a shadow of a doubt. We walked out of the gig just buzzing, feeling like we were about 20 feet tall. We walked into the foyer, we went straight to the merch desk. T-shirts, badges, posters, whatever we had saved up pocket money wise, we grabbed it. We walked out into the street. We'd arranged for our chauffeur, my mother, to come and pick us up. She was, of course, round the corner. Don't come and pick us up round the corner. Yeah, okay. So she was round the corner, but it was maybe like 10 minutes earlier than we'd said. So we stood there and watched those grebos, those grungy warlords of punk rock walking out, stumbling out, sweaty, some of them missing their t-shirts now, shoes missing, obviously all their rotten fruit and so on out of their pockets. We stood there clutching our posters, our badges, our t-shirts, everything, looking around, just encircled by this mob. They were like orcs, you know. You know, just as you, what could possibly be better than the next bit of the story, ladies and gentlemen? A fight broke out. But this wasn't just a fight, this was the entire gig. It was 2,500 punks fighting, and I can remember seeing how it started. One Mohican's gothed up, punked up girl turned to another one and went, I didn't know what they said, I didn't know what the exchange was. One turned to another and pushed her. She pushed back. And then suddenly went, the girls jumped on each other. Their girlfriends jumped on the other girls, then the boyfriends waded in, and I promise you, we were like in the eye of a storm, just fists and feet flying everywhere. Exhilarating, amazing. I hope no one got hurt or seriously hurt, but what better than to watch punk girls fighting? We walked round the corner, we staggered round the corner, and my mum, to this day, my dear old long-suffering, silver-haired, grey-haired old mummykins, says that she's never seen 4 boys looking so happy in her life. 4 people, 4 human beings looking so happy in all of their lives. We walked round, smiles from ear to ear. So I decided to call this story The Right Decision. It was the right decision, without a shadow of a doubt. It could have been amazing seeing Adamant, but that was life-changing. It's bizarre because that friend of mine, James, is a well-renowned and well-respected songwriter, James Yorkston. He's signed to Domino Records and has a flourishing career in the world of rock and roll. I am obviously, as you know, a radio dude and musician and so on and so on. I don't know what happened to John Cummins or Dick Petrie, but I certainly know that James and I are still in touch. We still talk about The Damned and occasionally Adamant, and we know that that wasn't just life-changing, it was certainly the right decision. And that's my tale, ladies and gentlemen. I know there are women and children here, so I tried to keep it clean. I didn't want to tell you anything too pornographic. I could have gone on about the first time I met John Peel, or interviewing Mike Watt from the Stooges, or all sorts of stuff, but I thought I'd do that, and I hope your first gig was every bit as exciting as mine. Now, I'd like to read you a little poem by George Mackay Brown, who is the founding patron of this very storytelling centre here in Edinburgh. Thank you to Danny and the centre for having us all. I'll take you on a little magical mystery tour after I've read this very short poem, but the opening line might give you a little hint as to who we're going to watch play next. A formal exercise for withered fingers. The head is bent, the eyes half closed, the tune lingers and beats. A gentle wing the west had thrown against his breakwater wall with salt, savage lament. So fierce and sweet the song on the plucked string. Know now for truth, those hands have cut from the net the strong, crab-eaten corpse of Jock, washed from a boat one old winter, and gathered the mouth of Tora to his mouth. Old fisherman with guitar. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to follow me.